was a car crash. Both of us were ejected from the car, and I was pronounced dead at the scene. I was clinically dead for 10 to 13 minutes. They covered me up with a blanket. An angel came down and took me to the other side. I was one with God. There is a whole realm on the other side of spirit guides, of angels, of deceased loved ones. We are all going to die. It's the only shared experience that we have left amongst all human beings. Your soul lives on.
The A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
I was a 19-year-old cadet at our United States Air Force Academy out in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And it was my second year there. And I was getting a ride back with a senior, and we were in a Corvette convertible, and we had to get back to the academy. And I wasn't, cadets aren't allowed to drive until they're juniors and seniors. So I got a ride back with him, and he wanted to stop for a beer and a cigarette, and he actually had a different agenda. What happened is he made a sexual pass at me, and I said no, and he got really angry, and he spun the wheel of the Corvette, and it fishtailed and hit a huge boulder, then flipped over, and both of us were ejected from the car, and I was pronounced dead at the scene. And the reason I know all this is because the EMT that was called to the scene and that worked on me told me. He came to my hospital room 10 weeks later and told me what happened. And some bystanders had heard the crash, came out, called the emergency services, and it took between 10 to 13 minutes for the first responders to get there. So I was clinically dead for 10 to 13 minutes. They covered me up with a blanket. And when the first responders got there, John, who is one of my guardian angels, so to speak, he checked me out, couldn't get any vitals on me, so did something called a sternal knuckle press, which is designed to elicit pain in the body. And so he did that, and my right pupil flinched and dilated. So the only memory I had of the crash was this brilliant white light. My memory came back 19 years after the crash. So that was the only memory I had for those 19 years. And then I'm at work one day, I went to get a coffee, and I remembered exactly how I was sitting in the car. And I remembered going through the windshield, and I remember going to the other side. My soul left me when I was up in the air, when I was being ejected went through the windshield, butt up first, and kind of got frozen up there. I knew when I looked down, I was going to die. I knew it. And I cried out, "Oh my God, please help me." And at that moment, an angel came down and took me to the other side. Okay. It was a male angel. It was a translucent body, but it was put in a shape form, and it had a male gender to it. In my book, I call him Casper the Friendly Ghost, because that's what it looked like to me. This is how I wrote it in my book. When I left my body, God had been all around me. And I use the term God. It can be source, higher power, whatever you want to call this creative, intelligent, energetic, intellectual being that is there. It has no beginning and no end. And that presence was in me. It was me. I was one with God. God was oneness and fullness and presence, but most of all, God was love. This pure, no strings attached, open arms love. And in that state, I had not suddenly been forgiven or received forgiveness from a stern father for my, quote, mistakes of disobeying him. My mistakes didn't even exist. I could hear other angels, other beings talking. And it's not like they were talking in English. It's through telepathy or through vibration. There are other ways you communicate on the other side. And then somehow you translate it back into English when you get on this side. I don't know how that happens, but it did. And the message that I heard was to ask our angels for help. There is a whole realm on the other side of spirit guides, of angels, of deceased loved ones that want to help us here on earth. We have to remember to ask because of something called free will. We have a choice. they are willing and wanting to help us, but we just have to ask. And that's a real important lesson that I want your audience to hear is your mistakes don't exist on the other side. There is no judgment. They never had. Nothing I had done on earth needed to be weighed or measured. The life I had just left behind told a story, yes, but just one of many I had lived in different realms. And then Casper says to me, Nicole, you're going to go back. And I could see my body from that side, because you have to remember on the other side, we don't have the limitations with our eyes that we have in our earthly human form. In our human form, we can see straight ahead and maybe 40 degrees each side peripherally. But in the other realm, you can see 360 all at one time and the future. So it's just all like, I don't even know how to, it's hard to find words to describe the other side. It really is. And I know I'm not the first to say that, but you can see it all. And just with music, you're hearing like multiple stations going on or multiple music at one time. It's amazing what the other side is like. But he told me, you're going to go back. And I just looked at my dead body in a ditch and I saw all the injuries and I said, I don't want to go back. I knew that there would be pain and I knew that there would be suffering if I came back in that body, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And I was right. It's been a difficult journey. I'm not going to lie to anybody to weed out all of these belief systems that I was given and to question them and to transform myself and to evolve and become aware of things into my own being. That has been a long journey for me. So I was told I was going to come back and I just said, I don't want to. And he said, yes, Nicole, you need to. There's a mission for you that's greater. And so I did. And 2 minutes later, my heart started beating. The doctor to this day says it is something supernatural. I did not get the choice. Some people do get a choice, but I did not. So my purpose was given to me directly by spirit to not be afraid of death. And while that seems quite simple, it has taken me almost 4 decades to understand what that looks like for me. 2 decades, to get my memory back, and then another 2 decades to process that and to embody it and to be able to articulate what it is. On the other side, you have to remember we're in soul form, spirit form. We don't have these bodies. When the EMT was working on me and got that sign of life in my right eye, my soul came back in at that moment and they were able to get a blood pressure reading on me of 60/0. Now that's still life and death, okay? Because normal is 120/80. So they immediately put mask pants on because I had cut my foot off. I had severed my wrist, my pelvis. I had massive injuries. And I was in such a state of shock and death that I was bleeding from the bone, which is a medical situation where it's extreme hypovolemic shock going on. So they got me into the bus, started CPR immediately, and did CPR for 20 minutes. And if you know anything about CPR, you know that's a long time to try to resuscitate someone. And so they did, and they got me into the nearest community hospital, not a trauma hospital. The accident happened at 7:30 at night. It took them all night in the OR to do that. And then I spent the next 4 months in the hospital recovering from the physical injuries of the crash. Then it took me decades to work on the mental and the spiritual aspects of it. And they took me into the OR and I was coding on the way to the OR. So when I got in the operating room, I actually did, they couldn't get my heart resuscitated. They called time of death. They told my parents I passed away and I left my body again. I wanted to go find that brilliant white light because I was in so much pain. And my angel, who I now know is James caught me and he said, no, you got to get back in your body. And then it happened a third time. I tried to leave again. My lungs were filling up with fluid and I suffocated. And So I did try to keep going back because I really loved being on the other side. And they kept sending me back saying, no, you got a purpose here and you need to align with that mission. And it's going to take you a while to align with it. And then James said he would be with me until I crossed over for the final time, which I'm still here. So hopefully I'll have a couple more decades on this planet now. But I have a team of 5 angels around me, and he is one of them. And I call him my military angel because he is there to protect me. Right after I published my book 2 years ago, my granddaddy came to me. I could smell cigar smoke in my office, and I looked around and I heard Nicole, and he said, Nicole, this is your grandfather on your paternal side. He said, I'm the angel that came down and saved you. He said, I saw the abuse and your fear that you were enduring at the Air Force Academy and that your soul was in the wrong place. You were never designed to be in a military academy and learn how to fight and kill other people. That was not your soul's purpose. You were doing that to please your father, which I, of course, knew I was, but I just couldn't quit. Because in our family, you don't quit. Failure is not an option when you sign up for something. So with that belief system in place, I kept going through, and it turns out, my grandfather was in his 30s and he was an alcoholic when he was on Earth. And it's ironic that the driver of the car that I was in, he turned out to be an alcoholic as well. And my grandfather died of a massive heart attack at 58 years old. And he came to me when I was 58 years old to tell me that he was the one that was the angel that saved me. So it's a cool story. And I have a special place in my heart now for him and for our relationship because he still talks to me now. We all have at least one guardian angel. I have one, Serafina, and they'll tell me their names. If you ask for their names, they'll tell them to you. Then I have James, and then I have a team that work with me. Here's something really cool about the angels. They'll come in and they'll help you with something. And then when you work through it, they'll leave you and another angel can come in to help you with something else that you need help with. So they can come and go, but there's a cord that stays with you. My memory just went away for 20 years. And now, I remember there were different colors, but I can't for the life of me pull up the colors that are not part of our current color wheel, but there are other colors. I just know it, so these things, but you don't have the memory to be able to say, okay, here's what I knew, or here's what I was told. I just knew I had to come back and be a light worker because my message and my story and the path that I'm on now needs to be put out there for other people to know they can do it too. And that God is not about judgment and God is not punitive and God is not, the wrath of God is not coming on you if you make a mistake or you do something bad or you break one of the rules of churches, that is not God at all. God is simply love. It's a love energy and we're all one. Everyone and everything is connected. And this is something I wasn't taught growing up. I wasn't even taught what our soul is, AJ. I had no idea. All I knew, I grew up in the South and I knew soul food and soul music, but I didn't know what our soul was. We are all going to die. It's the only shared experience that we have left amongst all human beings. Your soul lives on. And I can tell you that also you have many incarnations of your soul. This is not your first rodeo here on Earth. Okay. That's why when you see a baby and someone will say, oh, that baby looks like an old soul. Have you ever heard that phrase? Well, that's because that baby has been around a couple of times in a different form, incarnated in a different human experience. Other babies look like the Gerber baby. There are little cherubs. They're like, oh, I can't wait to see what Earth holds for me. And they're going to go, uh-oh, I didn't realize there was so much fear and hatred and all these divisiveness and, things that are going on right now that makes it really difficult to trust that there is a greater good and a higher presence and vibration, and that we're working toward the light instead of staying in this darkness, greed, corruption that seems to have been very, very much the way of the world recently. If you understand the greater cosmic consciousness and the bigger picture of where we go and how we keep evolving, you will understand that that person lives on, and you will see them on the other side. They will not be in their human form, but you will have the connection that you had of love. We just forget that. It's something called spiritual amnesia. We get it when we are born. We forget that we're these perfect, eternal, radiant, everlasting, gorgeous beings. And then we have to spend our whole life unwrapping that to get back to that you're perfect just as you are. There's nothing to fix. But all these filters that we get put on us when we're growing up cause us not to trust ourselves, cause us to think we're unworthy of love, all these messages that are not true. Here's my book, You Are Deathless. A near-death experience taught me how to fully live and not fear death. And I have to tell you up here with my credentials, along with being a dietitian, this one, BT, this is the best one for this experience because it's been there, done that. And there's no school that you can go to the other side, okay? You just have to look at all the lessons that have been compiled from the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And most of us all agree on the same 10 lessons. And the first one is you don't die. And the last one is you will have a life review. You won't be judged on the other side because bad and good are earth terms that we use to evaluate ourselves and others. On the other side, there's no bad. It's all good and greatness, okay? So there's no judgment to be held. So if we could learn to do that now, that would help a lot raise our vibrations to not judge yourself. So it can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle. Your independent bookstore can order it. It's on my website, www.NicoleKerr.com. And it's also in Audible form. We're all on a journey of our soul's evolution, every single one of us. And we never fully get to the end of it. But I have had to reconceptualize everything in my life.
This has been the AJ Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.